Artificial intelligence itself is the idea that computers can simulate intelligence. The artificial part refers to computers. The intelligence part refers to algorithms that simulate or imitate human intelligence. Now, what is human intelligence? Part of human intelligence is, of course, logical behavior, the application of rules. For example, if we think about a computer that knows how to play a game like chess, it knows the rules and knows which application of the rules lead to winning outcomes. The same thing for robots and the application of rules that make the robot do the assigned task without making errors or having value judgments that humans may disapprove of. But these are algorithms, and these algorithms need to be tested out, so to speak, and learned from. Learned from what? Learned from data, learned from numbers, learned from circumstances. And so the current generation of AI is not so much about logic. It's not so much about rules. It is not the chess playing games and the robots of yesterday. The current generation of AI is all about learning from data. Now, to do that, it therefore needs to have the capability of building algorithms that can learn from data. And these algorithms, or the learning from data, the machine learning from data, is what machine learning is about. So machine learning is a use of computer algorithms to learn appropriate rules from data. What do I mean by appropriate rules? We'll look at examples in more detail. But very roughly speaking, these rules could be, for example, unsupervised, which means show me patterns in the data, show me natural groupings in the data, and interpret them for me. Or supervised, which roughly means, can you predict a variable? Can you say whether something is going to happen or not? Or what is the right identifier for a piece of data that you've given it? And we'll look at examples in the future. So supervised learning predicts, unsupervised learning understands patterns. Both of these things are very, very useful and powerful things to do with data. Machine learning, however, has now interpreted data in very broad ways, not just numbers like a bank might see or a hospital might see, but other kinds of data that make this simulation of intelligence real. Data like texts, words, pictures, images, videos, other kinds of interesting signals, information from genetic sequences, Internet of Things, etc. So the ability to process all that kind of data requires extra layers of processing. And those extra layers of processing contribute or make up what is called deep learning. So what is deep learning? Deep learning is machine learning done for kinds of unstructured data that AI uses in simulating human intelligence. In particular, deep learning developed its capabilities first a little more than a decade ago for images and for text. And so therefore, when data from images and from text got applied to machine learning algorithms, the extra layers of image understanding and language understanding that were required were bolted on, so to speak, with a lot of cleverness to machine learning algorithms to form deep learning. So deep learning therefore uses machine learning ideas on, shall we say, unstructured, human-generated or human understanding-like data in order to build AI applications. And we'll see that. But the examples that I just gave on prediction, for example, in supervised learning, were on, shall I say, understanding data or even predicting data, unsupervised and supervised. But generative AI is not that. generative AI is creating data. It's not just understanding it, but creating text, creating images. So generative AI goes one step beyond the deep learning that was already highly well developed into saying that if I can now understand text, if I can understand images, if I can predict text, predict images, then I can also create text and create images and create other things that humans are capable of creating, or even go beyond that and create texts and images and other things of that sort that humans are not yet creating but might want to create, expand the notions of creativity. So generative AI is a particular kind of AI that uses the text and imaging capabilities of deep learning, which in turn use the prediction and understanding capabilities of machine learning. And together they contribute to artificial intelligence. Now, generative AI itself, going now deep into this picture again, has many solutions, of which, for example, ChatGPT is here. But ChatGPT itself is an exemplar of what? Of what might be called language models. And language models, more precisely large language models that we'll talk about, are models that form a bridge between the request that we give to a computer, which is normally in the form of language, and what it generates, which could be language, which could be code, which could be images, which could be designs, which could be molecular structures. So, but they lie at the interface of our interaction with the computer and the giving of the creative request and its understanding and the generation of it on the other end. So therefore, the development of large language models has been crucial to the development of generative AI. Is generative AI solving a new class of problems with these new technologies? After all, machine learning and deep learning have been around for a little longer. And what kind of problems do they solve? And what is the current focus on generative AI across industries? Let's look at a few industries and just take a few snapshots of problems that they might solve and what the generational shift is looking like. For example, in retail, if you're looking at machine learning, which is supervised learning, unsupervised learning, using numbers, then you can think in terms of things like, for example, fraud detection. Is this transaction fraudulent or not? Which can be a supervised problem. You can look at customer segmentation. People who are regular purchasers from my store, people who come infrequently or seasonally, or those who make high value purchases. These are segments, and that's an unsupervised learning problem. Or a price optimization problem, which is a combination of techniques such as, for example, learning the relationship of my sales patterns to various pricing patterns, which is a supervised problem in some way. And then optimizing that in terms of saying, what is the highest I can drive my price and not lose sales? And over what segments can I do various kinds of dynamic pricing? So these are problems that classically have been solved even before machine learning by using business analytics, for example. What did deep learning do to this world? It added more data, added richer data. And what these new kinds of data on language, etc. did is it allowed for example, customer sentiment analysis. By looking at words, by looking at social media interchanges, we can get whether the sentiment is positive or negative, which is a supervised learning problem, but based on text data, and therefore within the purview of deep learning. Deep learning is about different kinds of data. It could be about images, image recognition, face detection. If I'm looking at retail and I see the same customer in a different part of the store, or I look at whether a particular product is going out of stock or not. Same kinds of algorithms, but using a richer data collection or data stack than machine learning is doing. All this is still mostly in discriminative AI space. This is somebody's face. This is a specific product that I'm looking at. This is a yes, no to positive or negative sentiment. But if I'm not discriminating or distinguishing between things and I'm generating, what can I generate? For example, I can generate product bundles. I can generate a virtual shopping assistant. In other words, an avatar, as it is called, conversing with you. So instead of ChatGPT respond to you in text, this can simply respond to you in voice. That's not a technology that we're unfamiliar with, simply translating a text into an appealing voice. Virtual try-ons going beyond imaging into saying, hey, if you wore clothes like this, this is how you might look, to generate a consolidated image of a person wearing a particular set of clothes. These are creatives. They didn't exist, but they're based on data. They're based on different images of clothes, but they're synthesized within the context of a certain person. And so these applications allow a more interactive world, a more, shall we say, personalized world for the retail consumer. The same kind of journey exists for other industries as well. Let's take a quick look at healthcare. The supervised, unsupervised part of machine learning, for example, can give, let's say, disease outbreak prediction. This is a supervised problem in the sense that I'm predicting the next number. Will there be a disease outbreak? Yes or no? Or the extent of the outbreak in the next month. Risk stratification, instead of simply looking at segmentation, I can sequence the segmentation. These are high-risk patients. These are less-risk patients. These are the patients to which I need to take immediate action. It's an unsupervised problem, but you can even say semi-supervised, because it's a segmentation problem, stratification, but it's also a prediction problem, high risk. Likelihood of readmission, in other words, saying, will this person get readmitted or not? A little bit about this word. Instead of simply forecasting admission or not, yes or no, I can give a probability. I can say, oh, the probability of readmission is, let's say, 30%. And now as a doctor or a hospital administrator, you decide where to make the cutoff and convert this into a yes-no prediction problem of should I prepare for readmission or not. Deep learning makes the data richer. And I'm now talking about, for example, medical image segmentation, because I'm comfortable with images and I can look at lung images and look for lesions in lung cancer or whatever. I may look at ultrasound images, heartbeats, high dimensions. By high dimensions, I mean, if I'm looking at a beating heart, there are 3 spatial dimensions and a time dimension as well. So I can look at things that involve data that is not just text and images. I've been talking about that a lot, particularly text. But drug discovery involves data on molecules composed of atoms connected with bonds, chemical structures. That's a new kind of data. That's not numbers. That's a graph, if you want to think of it that way. When people often talk about graph neural networks and things like that, to interpret a molecule as graphs of atoms, the bonds being the edges. Interesting kind of data. But deep learning specializes in getting features from different kinds of data. Again, we're not generating anything yet, although we might generate new molecules. Generative AI would now say, just because we can have a personalized virtual assistant with respect to doctors, would you want to visit a dogbot? Maybe not for serious treatment, but for triage, for immediate answering, how can I help you? Instead of standing in a reception line, maybe this is a good idea. Creating medical images, stitching them together, predicting circumstances, doing what-if analysis to treatments, what-if analysis to personalized plans that can be done. If I give this to you, then will this work for you? So I'm not generating prescriptions, but I am generating what looks like an appropriate workflow for you, an exercise regimen, for example. So again, generative AI is about converting all this data into things that are synthesized, that are created. Maybe one more industry, the technology industry itself, where a lot of generative AI is being created. On the machine learning side, we can detect things, network intrusion. Is this a hacking event? Is this not a hacking event? Similarly for malware, we can do web traffic prediction. As you probably guessed, a lot of supervised learning is about prediction. We use this predictive ability to predict words in generative AI as well. But prediction, predicting a number, is what algorithms like regression, which are staples of supervised learning, specialize in. When we add new data sets to this, new kinds of data set to this, which deep learning does, what happens? Speech recognition for security, instead of typing something in, let's talk about it. Let's mention your name. So what's my name? And I say, okay, Abhinanda is my name. And by saying it in the way I say it, maybe a computer will recognize. It could be biometrics as well. Chatbots, as we've seen in a number of cases. Autonomous driving vehicles. Different kinds of images. A car that doesn't have a driver has to constantly process images to say, that's a pedestrian, that's a street sign, that's a car that's too close to me, I need to move. This decisioning has to be made very, very quickly, based on images and based on a programmable logic that's available in the car itself. Still not creating anything, still not generating anything, but obviously, you know where this is headed. And I can do things like virtual workspaces. Just like we saw, virtual doctors, we saw personalized assistants. We can have virtual workspaces. We can have campaigns that are generated. But within the technology stack, we can also generate interesting things that technologists care about. We can generate code. Is code a natural language? Large language models are about English or other languages, human languages. Code is another language, Python, Java. Can they do that? Why not? Provided the natural language model has seen enough code, it understands the flow of code, it understands the context of code. Everything that we have talked before applies to code as well. And so we might see some code generation. And we can generate data, synthetic data. I don't mean to say you shouldn't collect your data and you should make it up. Not that kind of thing. But if we know that within these parameters, the data would look like this, we can get far richer simulations of things on things that are of a very serious nature. For example, terrorism, nuclear war, etc. Or things of a more mundane nature, like generating data for assignments in classes. But it is still generation nonetheless.
And there it is. AI, machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI aren't four buzzwords fighting for attention. They're four layers stacked inside each other. And now you can see exactly what each one does across retail, healthcare, and tech. If you want more no-fluff breakdowns that make AI actually make sense, hit that subscribe button for new practical AI tutorials every week. Understanding how AI fits together is a great start. But to actually put these tools to work in your day and turn that understanding into real results, you need more than definitions. You need a system. That's where Great Learning's AI Native Professional Program comes in. It's a live, 6-week interactive course where expert mentors give you tailored guidance to master these tools and build custom automations without needing to write a single line of code. You get the exact blueprints to automate your routine tasks so you can reclaim 10+ hours a week. The link is down in the description and pinned comment, so definitely check it out. See you in the next one.